You know that feeling when you grab the cheapest pipe beveling tool you can find at the discount bin, only to discover the bevel is all wrong, the pipe gets nicked, and you end up redoing the whole job? I've been there more than once, and every time the cost of fixing the mistake far outweighs the few dollars saved on the cheap tool. That hesitation is exactly why I spent a few evenings watching YouTube tutorials, reading a handful of forum threads, and talking to a couple of local pipe fitters before I finally tried the Sawyer Mfg company saddle machine for pipe beveling. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What makes a beveling tool worth its weight in steel isn't just the price tag, it's how predictable the angle comes out, how easily you can switch pipe sizes, and whether the machine actually fits into a typical shop or job site layout. Most people who work with cast aluminum or thin-walled steel end up juggling a hand file, a cheap angle grinder, and a lot of guesswork. The result? Inconsistent cuts, extra labor time, and a growing pile of scrap that could have been avoided. When you're bidding on a residential HVAC job or retrofitting a small irrigation system, those hidden costs quickly add up. Enter the Sawyer saddle machine. At first glance, it looks like a fairly standard benchtop notcher, but the real differentiator is the three-sized spacer system that lets you handle anything from a 1-inch pipe up to an 8-inch outer diameter. The spacers slide into place with a solid click, so you're not wrestling with loose bolts every time you change size. In practice, that means if you're a contractor moving from a 1-inch copper line to a 3-inch aluminum conduit on the same day, you can make the swap in under a minute and keep the bevel angle consistent across both pieces. I tested the machine on a couple of real projects. The first was a small residential water heater upgrade where the existing copper pipe needed a clean 45-degree bevel to slip a new union onto a 2-inch pipe. I set the appropriate spacer, ran the cutting torch, and the bevel came out smooth, with no scorching on the aluminum surface. That mattered because the next step was a solder joint, and any discoloration could have compromised the seal. The second test was a DIY greenhouse irrigation line using 4-inch galvanized steel. The machine held the heavier pipe steady, and the bevel was even enough that the fitting slid right in without any forcing. In both cases, the time saved compared to fiddling with a handheld grinder was noticeable, roughly 15 minutes per pipe versus the half-hour I'd normally spend cleaning up a rough cut. Now, let's talk about who actually benefits from this setup. If you're a professional pipe fitter, an HVAC installer, or even a serious DIYer who regularly works with a range of pipe diameters, the flexibility of the 3 spacer sizes will pay for itself after a handful of jobs. The machine's size big enough to stay stable on a workbench but compact enough to fit in a standard tool chest means it won't hog precious shop space. For anyone who only ever works on one pipe size, or who does occasional hobbyist projects, the investment might feel a bit overkill. You could probably get away with a simple pipe beveling hand tool for a fraction of the price, especially if you're not concerned about ultra-precise angles. Strengths become clear when you look at the practical workflow. First, the consistent angle. Because the saddle holds the pipe at a fixed position while the torch does the work, you don't have to worry about the torch slipping or the pipe wobbling. Second, the spacer system eliminates the need for a separate set of notch plates. Each spacer is machined to the correct offset for its pipe range, so you're not hunting through a drawer for the right piece. Third, the overall sturdiness of the frame reduces vibration, which means less wear on your cutting torch and a cleaner edge on the bevel. Those are the things that show up in day-to-day use, not just on a spec sheet. On the downside, the machine does have